What's up, y'all? So I'm just trying to log in for y'all. All right, I'm gonna share the screen. We are covering Unit 1. This is a marathon of Unit 1. Let's see. Oh, here goes share. Okay. So y'all know how the marathons go. It's straight through. I'm gonna breeze through it as fast as I possibly can. Because between today and tomorrow, because Monday we start Unit 2. So please feel free to join in. You can come up. I can drop the link for anybody who wants to come up. Or you can say it along, in your own home, doing your own thing. And then, yeah, that'll be it. So we are on Unit 1 Introductions. These are the 7 chapters. Chapter 1. Is this chapter 1? Or, let me make sure. Hold on, y'all. Let me make sure I'm on chapter 1. Skip. Lesson 1, chapter 1. Okay.
Listen to the following conversation. By the end of this chapter, you'll be ready to have conversations like this one.
Hola, ¿cómo está usted?
Buenos días. Estoy bien, gracias. ¿Y usted?
Estoy bien también, gracias.
¡Qué día tan frío!
Bueno, que tenga un buen día.
Igualmente, adiós.
I was trying to find a picture, but I'll do it later.
Let's learn how to say hello.
Hola.
Hola.
Did you notice that although
Hola.
starts with the letter H, it is not pronounced? The letter H is always silent in Spanish. Nice. Now practice saying hello.
Hola.
Hola.
To say good morning, you would say
Buenos días.
Buenos días.
Now try and say good morning.
Buenos días.
Buenos días.
Good job so far. Now think of the way to say hello, good morning.
Hola, buenos días.
Hola, buenos días.
All right, let's learn how to say good afternoon. Listen closely and repeat.
Buenas tardes.
Buenas tardes.
You have now seen 2 different versions of the word for good
Buenos.
and
Buenas.
the alternation between
O.
and
A.
is related to grammatical gender, which you will learn more about later in this chapter. For now, just focus on remembering the phrases as a whole.
Buenos días.
And
Buenas tardes.
good afternoon
Buenas tardes.
is used from 12 p.m. all the way until 6 p.m. Let's hear you say, good afternoon.
Buenas tardes.
Buenas tardes.
Now, how do you say, hello, good morning?
Hola, buenos días. Buenos días.
Hola, buenos días.
Let's hear you say, Good afternoon.
Buenas tardes.
Buenas tardes.
Let's learn how to say good evening, good night.
Buenas noches.
Buenas noches.
In Spanish,
Buenas noches.
can be used as both a greeting and a farewell. In most Spanish-speaking countries, when entering a home, it is customary to greet everyone in the room by shaking his or her hand when you enter. It is also customary for two women, or a man and a woman who know each other well, to kiss on the cheek. Let's hear you say, good evening, good night.
Buenas tardes. Buenas noches.
Buenas noches.
Oh,
Now, how do you say, hello, good morning?
hola. Buenos días.
Hola, buenos días.
Let's hear you say, good afternoon.
Buenas tardes. Buenas tardes.
Buenas tardes.
Let's hear you say, good evening, good night.
Buenas noches.
Buenas noches.
Nice. Now practice saying, hello.
Hola.
Hola.
Now try and say, good morning.
Buenos días.
Buenos días.
All right, y'all. We moving on to the next lesson.
If you're in a formal setting, to say, how are you? You use,
¿Cómo está usted?
¿Cómo está usted?
here's how you would say, how.
¿Cómo?
¿Cómo?
Let's see if you can say, how.
¿Cómo?
¿Cómo?
Try this one,
Estar.
which means to be.
Estar. To be.
Estar.
Is one of two verbs meaning to be in Spanish. It is mostly used for temporary states of being, like feelings or the weather. Now, how do you say to be?
Estar.
Estar.
Let's see if you can say how.
¿Cómo?
¿Cómo?
Now, how do you say to be?
Estar.
Estar.
To say you are. Formally, you can say
Está.
Está.
in Spanish
Está.
is the form of the verb
Estar.
used when saying he, she, it is, or you are in a formal way. In a formal setting, how would you say you are?
Está.
Está.
Let's see if you can say how.
¿Cómo?
¿Cómo?
Now, how do you say to be?
Estar.
Estar.
In a formal setting, how would you say you are?
Está.
Está.
This is how you'd say you in a formal setting.
Usted.
Usted.
How do you say you in a formal situation?
Usted.
Usted.
Let's see if you can say how.
¿Cómo?
¿Cómo?
Now, how do you say to be?
Estar.
Estar.
In a formal setting, how would you say you are?
Está.
How
Está.
do you say you in a formal situation?
Usted.
Usted.
Try your best to say, how are you, when used in a formal setting.
¿Cómo está usted?
¿Cómo está usted?
Let's try something new. How would you formally say, "Hello, how are you?"
Hola, ¿cómo está usted?
Hola. ¿Cómo está usted?
Here's how to say, "Today."
Hoy.
Let's hear that again.
Hoy.
Hoy.
He's a married man.
Nice. Now practice saying, "Today."
Hoy.
Hoy.
Now, can you figure out how to say, "Hello, how are you today?" in a formal situation?
Hola, ¿cómo está usted hoy?
Hola, ¿cómo está usted hoy?
Hola, ¿cómo está usted hoy?
You are translates informally to.
Estás.
Notice that the formal way to say you are
Está.
becomes
Estás.
when used informally.
A trick, remember you guys, I told you, the trick for me is I know that like a friend, a slang term for friend is ese. So you add the ese for a friend, which would be informal for estás. Está is very formal, very, um, um, for a company or, your boss or somebody you're not familiar with. Estás has the S at the end to let you know that it's for your homies.
What's the casual way to say you are?
Estás.
Estás.
To say you in a casual setting, you would say
Tú.
Tú. Tú.
in Spanish, the use of pronouns is not necessary when the person whom you are speaking about is easily understood from context. This is because in Spanish, the verb endings change to indicate the person being referred to. It's not always necessary to use the informal you
Tú.
because it is reflected in the verb ending. But the formal form of you
Usted.
is often used. This is because it is not totally obvious from the form of the verb whom the speaker is referring to.
Está.
Is used for
Usted.
you, formal,
Él.
he, and
Ella.
she. This is something that happens with all the verbs in Spanish. Keep in mind that these three persons will always have the same form of the verb, just like in English when we say he is, she is, and it is.
Okay, I don't know if y'all want me to read it again, but I will. In Spanish, the use of pronouns is not necessary when the person whom you are speaking about is easily understood from context, meaning you don't need to use she, he, whatever. This is because in Spanish, the verb endings change to indicate the person being referred to. So remember, the words are masculine and feminine. If you're talking about a person who is a female, the word becomes feminine. The word becomes feminine with the I at the end. So it becomes redundant to say she when you know that because of the how the word itself ends, that it's referring to a female. It's not always necessary to use the informal you, tú, because it is reflected in the verb ending. So we'll take a look at that as well. I think, let me see an example. Is the está, right? So you know who is, remember, is estás is the familiar, friendlier, informal way. to kind of say like you are, so you don't need the tú estás. That's the you say it's redundant. But the formal form of you, usted, is often used. This is because it is not totally obvious from the form of the verb whom the speaker is referring to. Está is used for usted, which is formal, which is the you formal. Él and ella, he and she. This is something that happens with all the verbs in Spanish. So if you don't get it right the first few times, remember, you'll see it a lot because this is the rule. You'll see the endings representing the pronouns in every word, in every verb. So don't feel intimidated. Keep in mind that these three pronouns will always have the same form of the verb, just like in English. When we say he is, she is, and it is. Okay, don't get that part, but
How would you informally say you?
estás, or, oh no, tú.
Tú.
What do you think would be the way to say, how are you, to
¿Cómo?
someone in an informal situation?
Informal. ¿Cómo estás? Informal. ¿Cómo estás?
¿Cómo estás?
Te go to ese, mi amiga or amigo. ¿Cómo estás?
If you're in an informal situation, how would you say, hello, how are you?
Hola, ¿cómo estás?
Hola. ¿Cómo estás?
Let's learn how to say she.
Ella.
Ella.
Okay, now try to say she.
Ella.
Ella.
Based on what you already know, how would you say, how is she?
¿Cómo? ¿Cómo es ella?
¿Cómo está ella?
Oh, ¿cómo está ella? Okay. ¿Cómo está ella?
Remember, you could have also said,
¿Cómo está?
without saying,
Ella.
as long as the person whom you are speaking about is clear from the context of the conversation.
Okay. Because está, you don't know necessarily who the person is talking to. I got that. Okay.
To say he, you would say,
Él.
Él.
do you remember how to say he?
Él.
Él.
Can you figure out how to say, how is he?
¿Cómo está él?
¿Cómo está él?
Do you remember how to say, hello, how are you? In a
Hola.
formal setting.
Hola, ¿cómo está usted?
Hola. ¿Cómo está usted?
Nice. Now practice saying, today.
Hoy.
Hoy.
In a formal setting, how would you say, hello, how are you today?
Hola, ¿cómo está usted hoy?
Hola, ¿cómo está usted hoy?
What's the casual way to say, you are?
Estás.
Estás.
How would you informally say, you?
Tú.
Tú.
How would you informally say, hello, how are you?
Hola, ¿cómo estás?
Hola. ¿Cómo estás?
Okay, now try to say, she.
Él, ella.
What's the way to say, okay, now,
Ella.
what's the way to say, how is she?
¿Cómo está ella or cómo está?
¿Cómo está ella?
Do you remember how to say, he?
Él.
Él.
How do you say, How is he?
¿Cómo está él?
¿Cómo está él?
Let's learn how to say, I'm fine.
This is a
Estoy
new
bien.
lesson, y'all. Estoy bien.
Now let's learn I.
Yo.
Yo.
Although we do not usually need
Yo.
I in Spanish, it is a useful pronoun to learn. Do you remember how to say to be?
Ir.
Estar.
Estar.
Listen and repeat the following,
Estoy.
which means I am. Now, how do you say I am?
Estoy.
Estoy.
Listen carefully.
Bien.
Means fine. Let's hear that one more time.
Bien.
Bien.
Nice. Now practice saying fine.
Bien.
Bien.
Now, how do you say I am?
Estoy.
Estoy.
Nice. Now practice saying fine.
Bien.
Bien.
Now it's time to put it all together. Try saying I'm fine.
Estoy bien.
Estoy bien.
Here's how you would say thank you.
Gracias.
Gracias.
What's the way to say thank you?
De nada. Oh, gracias.
Gracias.
Using what you've learned, see if you can figure out how to say I'm fine, thank you.
Estoy bien, gracias.
Estoy bien. Gracias.
Try this one,
Y.
which means and.
Y.
Now, try your best to figure out how to formally say and you?
¿Y usted?
¿Y usted?
Now, can you figure out how to say I'm fine and you in a formal situation?
Estoy bien. ¿Y usted?
Estoy bien. ¿Y usted?
How do you say I'm fine, thank you?
Estoy bien. Gracias.
Estoy bien. Gracias.
How do you say I'm fine and you in a formal situation?
Estoy bien. ¿Y usted?
Estoy bien. ¿Y usted?
I don't know why he says E so fast and you can barely hear it, but I need to see how native speakers say that.
Here's how you would say to.
También.
También.
How do you say to?
También.
También.
Now, can you figure out the best way to say I'm fine too?
Estoy bien. También.
Estoy bien también.
How do you say I'm fine, thank you?
Estoy bien. Gracias.
Estoy bien. Gracias.
How do you say I'm fine and you in a formal situation?
Estoy bien. ¿Y usted?
Estoy bien. ¿Y usted?
Nice. Now practice saying I'm fine too.
Estoy bien. Yo también.
Estoy bien también.
Now, let's learn you're welcome. Ready?
De nada.
De nada.
Let's hear it again.
De nada.
De nada.
How do you say you're welcome?
De nada.
De nada.
How do you say I'm fine, thank you?
Estoy bien. Gracias.
Estoy bien. Gracias.
How do you say I'm fine and you in a formal situation?
Estoy bien. ¿Y usted?
Estoy bien. ¿Y usted?
Nice. Now practice saying, I'm fine too.
Estoy bien también.
Estoy bien también.
How do you say, you're welcome?
De nada.
De nada.
Up for a challenge? How
Sí.
would you say, she is fine?
Ella está bien. Estás
Está bien.
Está bien.
Ella está bien.
Is also correct.
Yay, I got that one right.
Based on what you already know, how would you say, he is fine?
Está bien. Or él está bien.
Está bien.
Here is how you would say, tired.
Cansado.
Cansado.
Nice. Now practice saying, tired.
Cansado.
Cansado.
Based on what you already know, how would you say, he is tired?
¿Estás cansado? Él estás cansado.
Está cansado.
Está cansado.
Using what you've learned, see if you can figure out how to say, she is tired.
Está cansada.
Está cansada.
Did you answer?
Está cansado.
Or,
Ella está cansado.
this is almost correct. However, in Spanish, the adjective must reflect the gender of the noun it modifies. In general, masculine nouns and their adjectives end in,
O.
and feminine nouns and adjectives end in.
A.
In this case, we know the gender of the adjective because we know the gender of the person we are talking about. How do you say, I'm fine, and you? In a formal situation.
Estoy bien. ¿Y usted?
Estoy bien. ¿Y usted?
Nice. Now practice saying, I'm fine too.
Estoy bien. También.
Estoy bien también.
How do you say, you're welcome?
De nada.
De nada.
Let's hear you say, she is tired.
Está cansada.
Está cansada.
Here's a new one. How would you say, you are tired, to a man in a formal situation?
¿Estás cansado?
Usted está cansado.
Usted está cansado. Okay.
Spanish dictionaries usually use the masculine singular form of an adjective as the base form, and we will do the same. If we do not specify, assume we are looking for the masculine singular form of the adjective. When you need to answer using a feminine or plural form of an adjective, we will always let you know. What's the way to say, thank you?
Gracias.
Gracias.
Do you remember how to say, and you? In a formal setting.
¿Y usted?
¿Y usted?
How do you say, too?
También.
También.
What's the way to say, she is fine?
¿Estás bien?
Está bien.
Está bien.
Now try and say, he is fine.
Está bien. Or él está bien.
Está bien.
Nice. Now practice saying, tired.
Cansado. Cansado.
Cansado.
How do you say, he is tired?
Está cansado.
Está cansado.
All right, y'all. We move on to lesson 4.
When you say,
¡Qué día tan frío!
You are saying, what a cold day. But it's literally translated as, what day so cold?
Qué día tan frío.
Here's how to say, day.
Día.
Día.
Let's hear that again.
Día.
Día.
How do you say, day?
Día.
Now, let's learn what. Ready?
¿Qué?
¿Qué?
Let's hear it again.
¿Qué?
¿Qué?
Let's hear you say, what.
¿Qué?
¿Qué?
How do you say, day?
Día.
Día.
Let's hear you say, what.
¿Qué?
¿Qué?
Now, how do you think you would say, what a day?
¿Qué día?
¡Qué día!
To say, cold, you would say,
Frío.
Frío.
how do you say, cold?
Frío.
Frío.
How do you say, day?
Día.
Día.
Let's hear you say, what.
¿Qué?
¿Qué?
How do you say, cold?
Frío.
Frío.
Can you figure out how to say, cold day?
Día frío.
Día frío.
Now let's learn, so.
Tan.
Tan.
Now, how do you say, so?
Tan.
Tan.
How do you say, day?
Día.
Día.
Let's hear you say, what.
¿Qué?
¿Qué?
How do you say, cold?
Frío.
Frío.
Now, how do you say, so?
Tan.
Tan.
Now, how do you think you would say, so cold day?
Día tan frío.
Día tan frío.
What's the way to say, what a day?
¿Qué día?
¡Qué día!
Nice. Now practice saying, cold day.
Día frío.
Día frío.
How do you say, so cold day?
Día tan frío.
Día tan frío.
Here's a challenge. Try to say, what a cold day. Or the literal translation, what day so cold?
¿Qué día tan frío?
¡Qué día tan frío! ¡Qué día tan frío!
¿Qué día tan frío?
This is how you say, afternoon.
Tarde.
Tarde.
Remember this? Say, afternoon.
Tarde.
Tarde.
You already learned that adjectives in Spanish change form based on the gender of the noun they describe. You may be asking, what do we do with inanimate nouns like afternoon?
Tarde.
Well, in Spanish, all nouns have something called grammatical gender.
Tarde.
Is a feminine noun, so we use the feminine form of the adjective.
Fría.
Now, this does not mean that Spanish speakers think that afternoon is inherently female. This kind of grammatical gender is arbitrary and is just a way to categorize nouns and organize speech. So far, so good. Can you figure out how to say cold afternoon?
Tarde frío. Oh, lo siento. Tarde fría.
Tarde fría.
Now let's learn rainy.
Lluvioso.
Lluvioso.
You may notice that the pronunciation of
Elle.
is different in the various Spanish-speaking countries. You may hear it pronounced as J, for example,
Lluvioso.
or as Y, for example.
Lluvioso.
In Argentina and Uruguay, you may hear it pronounced as SH, for example.
Lluvioso.
You will hear all of these pronunciations throughout our course so that your ear will get used to these sounds. No matter how you choose to pronounce it, though, native speakers are aware of these differences and they will understand you. Okay, now try to say rainy.
Lluvioso.
Lluvioso.
Now, how do you think you would say cold and rainy afternoon?
La tarde, tarde frío y lluvioso.
Tarde fría y lluviosa.
Tarde fría y lluviosa. Feminine.
Using what you've learned, see if you can figure out how to say, what a cold and rainy afternoon.
Qué día. Excuse me. Qué día tarde fría y lluviosa.
Qué tarde tan fría y lluviosa.
Do you remember how to say cold afternoon?
I'm trying to figure out what a cold day. It didn't say what day so cold.
Tarde fría.
What's the way to say, what a cold and rainy afternoon?
There's no so here. Que tarde tan fría y lluviosa. So I is supposed to represent so.
Qué tarde tan fría y lluviosa.
Now, let's learn how to say hot.
Caluroso.
Caluroso.
Listen closely one more time.
Caluroso.
Caluroso.
How do you say hot?
Caluroso.
Caluroso.
Listen and repeat the following,
Mañana.
which means morning.
Mañana.
Do you remember how to say morning?
Mañana.
Mañana.
Now, how do you think you would say the hot morning?
La mañana caluroso. Calurosa.
La mañana calurosa.
Now, can you figure out the best way to say is?
Es.
Está.
Está.
Using what you've learned, see if you can figure out how to say, the morning is hot.
La mañana está calurosa.
La mañana está calurosa.
Do you remember how to say, cold afternoon?
Tarde fría.
Tarde fría.
What's the way to say, what a cold and rainy afternoon?
La tarde. Qué tarde tan fría y lluviosa.
Qué tarde tan fría y lluviosa.
Okay, now try to say, the morning is hot.
La mañana está calurosa.
La mañana está calurosa.
Remember this? Say, afternoon.
Tarde.
tarde,
Okay, now try to say rainy.
Lluviosa.
lluvioso,
Lluvioso.
How do you say cold and rainy afternoon?
Tarde, fría y lluviosa.
tarde fría y lluviosa,
How do you say hot?
Caluroso.
caluroso,
Do you remember how to say morning?
Mañana.
mañana,
Nice. Now practice saying the hot morning.
La mañana calurosa.
la mañana calurosa.
All right, y'all. We're going to move on to lesson 5. Let me see how many was left in here total. Let me see.
Nice. Now practice saying
Okay, so we can get through the rest of these tonight. We still have all 4 chapters. I'm gonna have to do them tomorrow, and I'll just break it up into 3 groups.
let's see if you can say morning.
La mañana.
Mañana,
How do you say the hot morning?
Mañana. La mañana calurosa.
la mañana calurosa.
Nice. Now practice saying is.
Está.
Está,
Okay, now try to say the morning is hot.
Mañana calurosa.
la mañana está calurosa.
Esta. Oopsies.
Listen to the way you would say night.
Noche,
Noche.
Let's hear that again.
noche,
Noche.
Now try and say night.
Noche.
noche.
Remember that you say
Buenas tardes,
and,
buenas noches.
as you may have guessed by the ending,
As, noche,
is a feminine noun like.
tarde,
So let's do the next challenge. Can you figure out how to say, what a hot night?
Que tarde la noche. Oops, que oh Dios mío. Que noche tan calurosa.
qué noche tan calurosa.
Do you remember how to say cold afternoon?
Tarde tan fría.
Tarde fría.
Tarde fría.
What's the way to say, what a cold and rainy afternoon?
Qué tarde tan fría y lluviosa.
Qué tarde tan fría y lluviosa.
Okay, now try to say, the morning is hot.
La mañana está calurosa.
La mañana está calurosa.
Okay, now try to say, what a hot night.
Que noche tan calurosa.
Qué noche tan calurosa.
Now, let's learn humid. Ready?
Húmedo,
Húmedo.
Let's hear it again.
húmedo,
Húmedo.
Do you remember how to say humid?
Húmedo.
húmedo.
Now, can you figure out the best way to say, what a humid day?
Qué día tan húmedo.
Qué día tan húmedo.
Can you figure out how to say, what a humid night?
Qué noche tan húmedo.
Qué noche tan húmeda.
Humedad.
The region known as Latin America stretches from Mexico through Central America and the Caribbean, all the way down to Patagonia, the southernmost tip of South America. Therefore, it should not be surprising that the climate varies wildly. Latin American countries have hot, humid rainforests, arid deserts, high mountains, and tropical beaches. What's the way to say, "What a cold and rainy afternoon"?
Que tarde tan fría. Que tarde tan fría y lluviosa.
¡Qué tarde tan fría y lluviosa!
Okay, now try to say, "The morning is hot."
La mañana está calurosa.
La mañana está calurosa.
Okay, now try to say, "What a hot night."
Que noche tan calurosa.
¡Qué noche tan calurosa!
Nice. Now practice saying, "What a humid night."
Que noche tan húmeda.
¡Qué noche tan húmeda!
Now try and say, "night."
Noche
Noche.
Do you remember how to say humid?
húmedo.
Húmedo.
Now, how do you say, "What a humid day"?
Que día tan húmedo. Que día tan húmeda.
¡Qué día tan húmedo!
O húmedo. Húmedo. I mean, día is a masculine word.
One way to say, "Have a good day" is,
Que tenga un buen día.
but you are literally saying that "have a good day." Let's learn how to say a day.
Un día.
Now, let's learn how to say good.
Bueno.
Try to say good.
Bueno.
Based on what you all try to say,
Bueno.
based on what you already know, how would you say a good day?
Un buen día.
Un buen día.
Did you say
¿Un bueno día?
good guess? However, if an adjective ending in O comes before a singular masculine noun, then we drop the O. Again, this only happens if the adjective comes before the noun. For example, we say
Un hombre bueno.
a good man,
Un
but
hombre bueno.
Un buen hombre.
a good man if the adjective comes first. Remember, this rule only applies to singular masculine nouns, so
Buenos días.
always gets to keep the O.
Okay. Did you say un bueno día? Good guess. However, if an adjective ending in O, which is the bueno adjective describing the day, comes before a singular masculine noun, then we drop the O. We drop this O right here. Again, this only happens if the adjective comes before the noun. So, un buen día, or if you're having a bad day, un mal día. A good man. Another example is we say un hombre bueno, a man good, but un buen hombre, a good man. What? They both say the same thing. A good man. Okay. So if you say un hombre de bueno, a man a man good, versus a good man, un buen hombre. If the adjective comes first, remember this rule only applies to singular masculine nouns. So buenos dias always gets to keep the O. Buenos dias. Complicated. That part is so complicated.
Listen carefully.
¿Qué?
Means that. Let's hear that one more time.
¿Qué?
That. Que.
¿Qué?
Is the subordinate conjunction that, as in, I hope that you have a good day.
Okay.
How do you say that?
Que. That's the K without the accent on the E.
¿Qué?
Try say good.
Bueno.
Bueno.
How do you say that?
Que.
¿Qué?
Try this one,
Tener.
which means to have.
Tener. To have.
This is how you'd say you have subjunctive in a formal setting.
Tenga.
Tenga.
Subjunctive is a form of the verb that is used in Spanish after some verbs and expressions. We will talk about it in detail later on, but for now, just keep in mind that you need to have a subjunctive after.
¿Qué?
Do you remember how to say you have subjunctive in a formal setting?
In a formal setting. Tener.
Tenga.
Tenga. Tenga. Tenga.
Try to say good.
Bueno.
Bueno.
How do you say that?
Que.
¿Qué?
Do you remember how to say you have subjunctive in a formal setting?
Tenga.
Tenga.
Okay, now try to say a good day.
Un buen día.
Un buen día.
Now, let's say the literal translation of that have a good day, which can be used in a formal setting to say have a good day.
Que un buen
Que
día.
tenga un buen día.
Que tenga. Ay, ay, ay. Que tenga un buen día.
Here's how you would say Monday.
Lunes.
Lunes.
Although days of the week are capitalized in English, they are always lowercase in Spanish. Let's hear you say Monday.
Lunes.
Lunes.
Now, how do you think you would say have a good Monday?
Tenga un buen día. Un buen lunes.
Que tenga un buen lunes.
Que tenga un buen lunes. Que tenga un buen lunes.
Now, let's learn how to say likewise.
Igualmente.
Igualmente.
Listen closely one more time.
Igualmente.
Igualmente.
Nice. Now practice saying likewise.
Igualmente.
Igualmente.
Try to say have a good Monday.
Que tenga un buen lunes.
Que tenga un buen lunes.
Nice. Now practice saying likewise.
Igualmente.
Igualmente.
Try this one,
Ver.
which
Ver.
means to see.
Ver.
Let's hear you say to see.
Ver.
Ver.
The translation of
Nos vemos.
is see you. However, you are literally saying we see each other.
Nos vemos.
Okay, now try to say, see you.
Nos vemos.
Nos vemos.
Try to say, have a good Monday.
Mm. Que tengan un buen día. Un buen lunes.
Que tenga un buen lunes.
Nice. Now practice saying, likewise.
Igualmente.
Igualmente.
Okay, now try to say, see you.
Hasta luego. I forgot.
Nos vemos.
Nos vemos.
Now, let's learn on Tuesday. Ready?
El martes.
El martes.
Let's hear it again.
El martes.
El martes.
In Spanish, we do not use the preposition on in front of the days of the week, but rather the definite article,
El.
the. Now, how do you say on Tuesday?
El martes.
El martes.
Using what you've learned, see if you can figure out how to say, see you on Tuesday.
Nos vemos el martes. Oh boy. Nos vemos el martes.
Nos vemos el martes.
Try to say, have a good Monday.
Que tenga un buen martes
Que tenga un buen lunes.
o lunes.
Nice. Now practice saying, likewise.
Igualmente.
Igualmente.
Okay, now try to say, see you.
Nos vemos.
Nos vemos.
Now, how do you say, see you on Tuesday?
Nos vemos el martes.
Nos vemos el martes.
Let's hear you say, Monday.
Lunes.
Lunes.
Let's hear you say, to see.
Ver.
Ver.
Now, how do you say, on Tuesday?
El martes.
El martes.
All right, y'all. Take a deep breath. We got one more to go. And then I guess the activities or whatever. So, I don't know if y'all want to, I don't know. If you need to push pause on this video, please do so. I'm going to try and keep going. And hopefully I don't fall asleep. But we got one more lesson to go. Pause this video, go stretch, get some water, and then come back. Let's see. All right, here we go.
What's the way to say, to see?
Ver.
Ver.
How do you say, see you?
Nos vemos
Nos vemos.
Do you remember how to say, on Tuesday?
el martes.
El martes.
Nice. Now practice saying, see you on Tuesday.
Nos vemos el martes.
Nos vemos el martes.
Listen to the way you would say, until.
Hasta.
Hasta.
Let's hear that again.
Hasta.
Hasta.
All right. Let's learn how to say, later, then. Listen closely and repeat.
Luego.
Luego.
How do you say, later, then?
Luego.
Based on what you've seen so far, how do you think you would say, see you later? Literally, you're saying, until later.
Nos vemos.
Hasta luego.
Oh, hasta luego.
Nos vemos.
And
Hasta.
can be used interchangeably to say, see you. Do not worry if you say one instead of the other in your reply. You haven't made a mistake. Nice. Now practice saying, likewise.
Igualmente.
Igualmente.
Okay, now try to say, see you.
Nos vemos.
Nos vemos.
Now, how do you say, see you on Tuesday?
Nos vemos el martes.
Nos vemos el martes.
Now try and say, see you later.
Hasta luego.
Hasta luego.
Up for a challenge? How would you say, see you on Monday?
Hasta el lunes.
Hasta el lunes.
Okay, now try to say, see you.
Nos vemos.
Nos vemos.
Now, how do you say, see you on Tuesday?
Hasta el martes.
Nos vemos el martes.
Nos vemos el martes.
Now try and say, see you later.
Hasta luego.
Hasta luego.
Okay, now try to say, see you on Monday.
Hasta el lunes.
Hasta el lunes.
Now, let's learn tomorrow.
Mañana.
Ready?
Mañana.
Let's hear it again.
Mañana.
Mañana.
Did that word seem familiar?
Yes.
It should. You already learned that
Mañana.
means morning. Actually, in Spanish, this word can mean both morning and tomorrow.
Mhm.
Now, how do you say tomorrow?
Mañana.
Mañana.
Here's a challenge. How do you say, see you tomorrow? You are literally saying, until tomorrow.
Until. Hasta mañana.
Hasta mañana. Hasta mañana.
Is used in some countries to say good night, in the sense, have a good night until we see each other tomorrow. Now, how do you say, see you on Tuesday?
Hasta el martes.
Nos vemos el martes.
Nos vemos el martes.
Now, try and say, see you later.
Hasta luego.
Hasta luego.
Okay, now try to say, see you on Monday.
Nos vemos el lunes.
Hasta el lunes.
Remember this? Say, see you tomorrow.
Hasta mañana. Nos vemos
Hasta mañana.
Hasta
Here's
mañana.
how you would say, soon.
Pronto.
Pronto.
Let's see if you can say, soon.
Pronto.
Pronto.
Based on what you've seen so far, how do you think you would say, see you soon? Literally, you're saying, until soon.
Hasta pronto.
Hasta pronto.
Now try and say, see you later.
Hasta luego.
Hasta luego.
Okay, now try to say, see you on Monday.
Hasta el lunes.
Hasta el lunes.
Remember this? Say, see you tomorrow.
Nos vemos mañana.
Hasta mañana.
Now, how do you say, see you soon?
Hasta pronto.
Hasta pronto.
Listen and repeat the following,
Adiós.
which
Adios.
means goodbye.
Adiós.
Now try and say goodbye.
Adiós.
Adiós.
Based on what you've already learned, what do you think is the correct way to say goodbye, have a good day, in a formal setting?
Adiós. Tenga un buen día.
Adiós. Que tenga un buen día.
Que tenga un buen día. Ok. Que. Adiós. Que tenga un buen día.
Okay, now try to say, see you on Monday.
Hasta el lunes.
Hasta el lunes.
Remember this? Say, see you tomorrow.
Hasta mañana.
Hasta mañana.
Now, how do you say, see you soon?
Hasta pronto.
Hasta pronto.
What's the formal way to say, Goodbye. Have a good day.
Adiós. Que tenga un buen día.
Adiós. Que tenga un buen día.
How do you say later, then?
Luego.
Luego.
Now, how do you say tomorrow?
Mañana.
Mañana.
Let's see if you can say soon.
Pronto.
Pronto.
Now try and say goodbye.
Adiós.
Adiós.
Congrats, you've reached the end of the chapter. Let's listen to the conversation again to see how much you've learned.
Hola, ¿cómo está usted?
Buenos días. Estoy bien, gracias. ¿Y usted?
Estoy bien también. Gracias.
¡Qué día tan frío!
Bueno, que tenga un buen día.
Igualmente. Adiós.
Mhm. All right, y'all.
¡Uf! ¡Qué día tan largo! Estoy cansada. ¿Cómo está usted?
Yo también estoy cansado. Y la noche está tan fría.
Está fría y lluviosa. Tenga cuidado.
Gracias. Nos vemos mañana.
Hasta luego. Que tenga una buena noche.
Igualmente.
So we know we did these questions already, but we'll do them anyway. What is happening? The participants are saying goodbye. The participants are saying hello. The participants are talking about what they did that day. The participants are talking about the next day's forecast. I done forgot. What time of the day is it? Evening. What do the speakers have in common? They have more work to do. They feel tired. They plan to walk home.
Yo también estoy cansado. Y la noche está tan fría.
What is the weather like? Cold and rainy. For what reason does the woman say tenga cuidado to the man because the weather is bad? Is it cuidado? Cuidado. Tenga cuidado. Because he is ill, because he is often clumsy, because he is in danger, because the weather is bad. All right, y'all. What is this? Skip tutorial. Unit 1, Chapter 1. Okay. So we're just going to read it. Buenos días, aquí el tiempo. Hoy lunes la mañana está calurosa y la tarde también. Noche húmeda. Mañana martes, el día también caluroso y la noche lluviosa. Que tenga un buen día. Hasta mañana. What is the most likely purpose of the message? To give the weather forecast. Which of the following statements are true? Today is hot, tomorrow will be humid. Today and tomorrow are rainy. Hoy lunes la mañana está calurosa y la tarde también. Noche húmeda. Mañana martes el día también caluroso y la noche lluviosa. So they're both hot. Today is hot. What time of day was this report published? It says que tenga un buen día. Hasta mañana. Buenos días in the morning. What will the weather be like tomorrow night? It will be caluroso y la noche lluviosa. Which statement is probably true? The speaker forecasts the weather every day. The speaker forecasts the weather once a week. The speaker forecasts the weather twice a day. Un buen día hasta mañana every day. Was that it? Lesson 1. Yep, we're done. All right, y'all. See you tomorrow for 2, 3, and 4. This is my fault because I was supposed to do 1 and 2 today, but I got busy earlier today because it was so beautiful. But I will do all 3 tomorrow. En la mañana will be capítulo 2. En la tarde capítulo 3 y capítulo 4, because en la noche I have to get the kids ready for escuela. Okay. All right, estudiantes. I don't know how to say peer, but okay, students, my peer students, because we're doing this together. I will see you guys in the next video. Peace.